Imagine a land shaped by wind, fire, and time. A land sculpted not by human hands, but by the slow and patient artistry of nature itself, forming a dreamscape unlike anywhere else in the world. Imagine valleys carved by millions of years of erosion, ridges painted by volcanic ash, and stone pillars rising like ancient guardians over a timeless land. Imagine the silence of dawn, broken only by the roar of flames filling the first hot air balloons of the day. One by one, the balloons rise, glowing like lanterns lifting the dreams of humanity into the morning sky. This is Cappadocia, a place where nature and history meet in a harmony that feels otherworldly. A place where ancient civilizations carved homes, churches, monasteries, and entire cities beneath your feet. A place where people still live with traditions born thousands of years ago, crafting pottery, weaving carpets, tending vineyards carved into volcanic soil. But to understand Cappadocia, you must walk through its valleys, descend into its underground worlds, stand inside its rock-hewn chapels, and look up at its sky, the sky where dreams rise every morning. In this documentary, you will experience Cappadocia through its landscapes, its legends, its people, its flavors, and its secrets. Welcome to a land where time has a different rhythm. Welcome to Cappadocia, Turkey. To understand Cappadocia, we must go back, far back, not hundreds, not thousands, but tens of millions of years into Earth's history. At that time, central Anatolia was a land of fire. 3 colossal volcanoes dominated the region, Mount Erciyes, Mount Hasan, and Guladag. These giants erupted not once, but countless times. Each eruption sent enormous clouds of ash into the sky, covering the landscape with layers of lava and molten rock. When these flows cooled, they formed a soft, porous stone called tuff, a material that would one day become the canvas of Cappadocia. But nature was not finished. Over millions of years, wind carved the stone, rain sliced through valleys, and temperature changes cracked and shaped the rocks like a sculptor's chisel. Some chimneys formed because harder basalt rocks sat on top of softer tuff. As the softer rock eroded away, the harder rock protected the pillar beneath, creating the surreal pillars we now call fairy chimneys. Imagine the patience of nature, millions of years, millions of storms, millions of blows of wind, all working together to build a landscape that feels almost supernatural. Today, geologists describe Cappadocia as a textbook of erosion, a place where you can read the history of Earth simply by looking at the rocks. But to travelers, it is something else entirely, a dreamscape, a place where the Earth itself seems alive. Beneath the beauty of Cappadocia lies one of the greatest engineering achievements of the ancient world, a network of underground cities stretching for kilometers. Derinkuyu, the most famous of them, descends deep into the earth, floor after floor, tunnel after tunnel. It is estimated that up to 20,000 people could survive underground for months. But how? Because these cities were not crude shelters. They were complete societies carved into stone. There were kitchens with ventilation holes, wine cellars carved into cool chambers, churches with domed ceilings, stables for animals, and wide communal rooms where families gathered. The most astonishing feature, massive rolling stone doors, perfectly round, carved to fit the tunnels exactly, allowing people to seal the city from inside during invasions. Imagine living here during a time of danger. While armies marched across the plains above, entire families would descend into the underground tunnels. Children played in the corridors, women prepared food in stone kitchens, priests held services in small chapels lit by lanterns. These cities were not built in a decade, not even in a century. They were expanded generation after generation, like living organisms growing beneath the earth. And Derinkuyu is just one of many. Kaymakli, Oskonak, Marzi, Tatlaran. Each has its own secrets, its own corridors, its own stories. Today, exploring them feels like entering the memory of an ancient civilization, a civilization that survived by going underground when the world above became too dangerous. Long before Cappadocia became a tourist destination, it was a sanctuary, a refuge for those seeking peace, solitude, and faith. When Christianity was still young and persecuted, believers traveled to Cappadocia to practice their faith in secrecy. The soft volcanic rock allowed them to carve entire sanctuaries, chapels, monasteries, dining halls, sleeping chambers, libraries. Gormy open-air museum today holds some of the oldest Christian frescoes in the world. Inside the dark church, Karanlik Kalai's colors remain incredibly vivid because so little sunlight ever entered the cave. You can still see scenes from the life of Jesus, the Last Supper, portraits of saints, and geometric patterns representing eternity. But these caves were not just decorations. They were the heart of monastic life. Monks lived in absolute silence, studying, writing, praying, and teaching. For centuries, Cappadocia was one of the intellectual centers of early Christianity. Saint Basil, Saint Gregory, and Saint George all have ties to this land. Their teachings spread from these valleys to the world. Walking among these cave churches today, you feel not only history, but devotion carved into stone. Every morning in Cappadocia begins with a ritual that has become one of the most iconic sights on Earth, the rising of the hot air balloons. Long before sunrise, pilots and crew members arrive at the launch fields. The valley is still dark, the air cold and silent. Slowly, giant balloons, lying on the ground like sleeping creatures, are filled with air. Flames roar into the darkness, lighting up the landscape with bursts of orange and gold. As the sun approaches the horizon, the balloons begin to rise. Dozens, then hundreds of them, lifting gracefully into the sky. From above, Cappadocia becomes a living painting, fairy chimneys standing like stone guardians, villages carved into cliffs, and valleys glowing in soft shades of red and pink. For many travelers, this moment becomes one of the most unforgettable scenes of their lives. It is not just a balloon ride, it is the feeling of floating above history itself. From the sky, you see the deep scars carved by erosion, the orchards planted by generations of villagers, the ancient cave houses built into the cliffs, and the majestic volcanoes that shaped everything below. The ride lasts about an hour, but the memory lasts forever. This is not simply tourism. It is a celebration of Cappadocia's identity, a reminder that the land, the sky, and the wind are all part of its living story. Cappadocia is not defined only by its landscapes, it is shaped by its people. People who have lived on this land for thousands of years, passing down traditions, skills, and stories from generation to generation. In small villages, shepherds still lead their flocks across rocky hills. Elders sit outside their stone houses, telling stories of past winters and ancient legends. Children play among cave dwellings that have stood for centuries. Families gather during harvest season to collect grapes, almonds, and apricots, the fruits that have nourished this region for thousands of years. Local artisans continue traditions that date back to ancient Anatolia: carpet weaving, pottery making, stone carving, and copperwork. These crafts are more than art forms, they are cultural identities. Hospitality is at the heart of Cappadocian life. Travelers are offered tea or homemade wine, and conversations begin easily, often lasting for hours. Through its people, Cappadocia is not only seen, it is felt. Avanos, a town built along the banks of the Kızılırmak, the Red River, has been the heart of Anatolian pottery for more than 4,000 years. The clay found here, rich in iron, gives a deep red color unique to the region. Ancient Hittites used this clay. Seljuks used it. Ottomans used it. And today, modern potters continue the tradition. Inside Avanos workshops, you can hear the rhythmic spinning of pottery wheels. Masters shape the clay with movements inherited from their fathers and grandfathers. Tourists are often invited to try shaping the clay themselves, a gesture that connects them to an unbroken chain of artisans stretching back millennia. Pottery here is not merely a craft. It is a language, a form of storytelling where every pot, bowl, and jug holds a memory of the Red River and the people who shaped it. Cappadocia was not only a geological wonder or a religious refuge, it was a crossroads of civilizations. For centuries, this region sat directly on major trade routes, including branches of the Silk Road. Caravans carrying silk, spices, precious stones, and ceramics traveled through these valleys, stopping at caravanserais for rest and protection. One of the most impressive caravanserais is Sarahan, built in the 13th century during the Seljuk period. Here, merchants from Persia, China, Arabia, and Europe shared stories, goods, and ideas. This exchange shaped Cappadocia's culture, its architecture, its cuisine, its crafts, its traditions. The region became a melting pot of beliefs and identities, a place where East met West long before borders existed. Modern travelers may come on buses instead of camels, but Cappadocia remains a crossroads, connecting people from every corner of the world. Rising high above the valleys of Cappadocia stands one of the region's most iconic landmarks, Uçhisar Castle. This massive rock formation, visible from miles away, is not a typical castle built by man, but a natural tower carved by wind and perfected by human hands. Early inhabitants of the region carved countless rooms, tunnels, storage chambers, pigeon roosts, lookout points, and passageways into this giant rock. From the outside, it looks like a honeycomb. Every hollow space a doorway into the past. Climbing Uçhisar Castle is like walking through layers of history. Each room tells a fragment of a forgotten story: families living through harsh winters, soldiers watching the horizon for danger, travelers stopping for shelter, and monks seeking solitude in its upper chambers. Today, the summit offers one of the most breathtaking views in all of Cappadocia. From the top, the landscape stretches endlessly. Gormi, Avanos, Ergup, and distant Mount Erciyes dominating the horizon. Not far from Uçhisar rises another monumental stronghold, Ortahisar Castle. Less known but equally extraordinary, this colossal rock served as a fortress and a safe haven during turbulent centuries. Its rooms, carved deep into the stone, were designed to protect villagers from raids, weather, and war. Together, Uçhisar and Ortahisar stand as guardians of Cappadocia, silent witnesses to centuries of life, struggle, and resilience. Far from the balloon-filled skies of Gormy lies a place that feels completely different, a deep canyon carved by the Melendez River over thousands of years, Alara Valley. Unlike the dry, golden tones of central Cappadocia, Alara Valley is full of life, lush trees, flowing water, birdsong echoing between stone walls rising 100 meters high. For early Christians, this valley was a hidden paradise. Dozens of churches were carved into the canyon walls, each decorated with frescoes unique to this region. Some churches still bear writings in ancient Greek and Armenian. Walking through Alara Valley is like stepping back in time. You follow the same river that monks once followed, passing the same caves where they prayed, slept, and studied. At the end of the valley stands the magnificent Salim Monastery, the largest rock-carved monastery in Cappadocia, with a cathedral-sized church, kitchens, stables, and vast chambers carved into volcanic stone. Alara is the softer, greener heart of Cappadocia, a reminder that this land holds not only fire and rock, but also water, life, and peace. One of the most unique aspects of Cappadocia is how people lived, not on the land, but inside the land. For thousands of years, residents carved their homes directly into the rock. These cave houses were not primitive shelters. They were cool in the summer, warm in the winter, protected from storms, invaders, and harsh conditions. Inside these cave homes, people built bedrooms carved from stone, kitchens with tandoor ovens, storage rooms for wine, wheat, and fruit, stables for animals, courtyards opening toward the valleys. Some houses were simple single-room dwellings. Others were massive complexes with multiple levels, terraces, and tunnels. In Cappadocia's villages, like Kavusan, Ortahisa, and Ergup, you can still see families living in restored cave homes alongside modern houses built with volcanic stone. Living inside the earth shaped the culture of this region, the architecture, the spiritual life, the traditions, and even the cuisine. These homes are not ruins, they are living memories, still echoing the stories of centuries of life carved into the rock. __. Cappadocia's volcanic soil did not just shape its landscape, it shaped its food, wine, and traditions. The region is famous for its grapes, grown in mineral-rich volcanic earth. For thousands of years, locals produced wine in terraces carved into the rock. Inside cave houses and monasteries, you can still see ancient wine presses cut into stone. Cappadocian cuisine is simple but deeply flavorful. Testi kebabi cooked in sealed clay pots, hair-thin noodles called erist, stone oven breads, lentil soups, grape molasses, and dried fruits preserved for winter. Another tradition shaped by the land is the tandir, a clay oven carved into the floor of houses. Families gathered around it for warmth, for cooking, and for storytelling. Food in Cappadocia is not merely nourishment, it is memory, heritage, and identity. As Cappadocia's beauty became known to the world, tourism grew rapidly. What was once a quiet region of shepherds, farmers, and artisans became one of Turkey's most visited destinations. Today, millions come to experience its valleys, balloons, caves, and history. But with popularity comes responsibility. The rock formations of Cappadocia are fragile. The frescoes, thousands of years old, fade with every touch of moisture and light. The underground cities are vulnerable to collapse if not carefully protected. Local communities, archaeologists, and conservationists now work together to preserve the balance between tourism and heritage. Hotels are built inside restored cave homes, villages carefully maintain ancient architecture, and balloon companies follow strict flight guidelines to protect the landscape. Cappadocia is changing, but its soul remains the same. A place where life flows gently, where traditions continue, where every sunrise feels like a reminder of the land's timeless beauty. As the sun sets over Cappadocia's ancient valleys, we are reminded that some places are more than landscapes, they are living memories. A meeting point of nature, history, humanity, and dreams. If this journey moved you, if it inspired you, if it made you wonder, then I invite you to continue exploring the world with me. Thank you for watching this documentary and for sharing this unforgettable journey across Cappadocia. If you enjoyed this film, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Your support helps bring more stories to life. Until our next adventure, may your path be open, your heart be curious, and your dreams rise freely, just like the balloons of Cappadocia at sunrise.